Okay, welcome everyone to the Analytic Mind podcast. I'm excited to have on with us today Bharath Natarajan. And Bharath has got a wealth of experience across a whole range of companies, actually, and also dealing with lots of different business functions, and then also well-versed in a lot of technology. So there's so many different ways I think this conversation can go today, which I'm really excited about. Currently, you're working at a business called Keysight Technologies as the business intelligence and automation manager, from what I believe. And Keysight isn't, it's not a brand that I honestly knew too much about, but I did a bit of research before I call, and it's a huge company, absolutely massive company that deals in so many interesting parts of the technology space. So yeah, I mean, I'm excited to dive into a whole range of different things. But one of we kick things off by, I'll just throw to you, and maybe you can just give a bit better background about what you're doing now and what you've done in the past in the analytics space.
Sure, thanks, Sam. Happy to be here. So I'm at a company called Keysight. So Keysight is a large global test and measurement equipment company. So it's the original HP, actually. So it's like an 80-year-old company. And so Keysight focuses on providing test and measurement solutions for telecom companies like Apple and Samsung and many others, as well as semiconductor companies like Broadcom, Qualcomm, all the major semiconductor companies, as well as emerging new markets like IoT, automotive solution, battery testing, like so Tesla, all the battery, all the EV companies. So, and the Keysight is trying to move aggressively into software with acquisitions. So there are a lot of different tailwinds for Keysight's business, and there's a huge push for growth, and hence the huge need for analytics at Keysight.
Wow. And so obviously it's a huge company, lots of different business lines. Are you sitting across all of those, or are you in a specific segment of the business?
Yeah, I'm in IT, so I'm the responsible for providing solutions for analytics for across all the businesses like finance, supply chain, sales, marketing, service, call center, HR. I'm sure I'm missing quite a order fulfillment, order management. So basically, take care of all these functions, provide the data. So my team is responsible for Wall Street, providing data for Wall Street reporting, as well as operational reporting, analytical reporting, and real-time reporting. So it's a very small team. It's actually just 12 people, but we support several thousand users. So yeah, we can talk more about how we support it and how we roll it out.
Yeah, I think that'd be interesting. So that is quite unique that you're a huge organization but quite a small team. I mean, maybe it's not actually that unique. Maybe that is more the norm at the moment. But how do you utilize your small team to make an impact across that many people?
Right. So we clearly cannot build end dashboards or reports for several thousand users. So the only way we can scale is to provide the capability for others to build, like the super users in all these businesses, the power users, so that they are able to build and self-serve on the platform that we provide. So me and my team are responsible for bringing data from many different applications, and then making sure that it loads successfully every single day, several times a day, and then making sure that we provide the accurate certified data sets for super users in various businesses to use and build dashboards on top of.
Right.
It sounds simple, but it's very difficult to achieve. And not only that, to consistently run it daily, day in and day out, is quite a bit of a challenge to automate all of this end to end.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I mean, this has been one of the biggest learnings that we've had over many episodes of the podcast, is how important building the foundations around your data pipelines are. You can't do anything. You can't reliably do anything from a reporting and dashboarding perspective unless you have the data pipeline set up, from capturing the data, cleaning it up, automating it, sending it out to distributing it, etc. So, would you be able to elaborate on some of those challenges and how you've gone about solving those?
Yes. So when Keysight was formed, or actually split from a company called Agilent about 5 years back, things were relatively simple because we had one single global ERP, which was doing not only sales, not only doing like the core ERP functions like finance and supply chain. It was doing all the other functions as well. But what happened since then is each business was not happy with the one common applications. So the CRM team started doing Salesforce, the marketing team started doing Eloqua, and the revenue teams implemented RevPro. And then this is a common pattern where more and more functions is going to best of breed cloud applications. So what happens in those situations is now your data is sitting in now like 20 different applications, and your core data, financial data, is sitting in the common ERP platform. So now it becomes very big challenge for the BI team to now take data from completely different kinds of sources and stitch them together and provide the data set that was available before in a lot more easier manner because it's coming from one application. So I would say this is probably one of the biggest challenges that most companies are facing because of the the disparate system the data is coming from. So not only that, we inherited a very old BI, a bunch of BI systems. So we modernized them. It took about 3 years to completely get rid of the old systems and come to the modern platforms so that we can enable the speed of change, we can enable performance improvements, we can enable cost improvements, we can enable self-service, and then, all those huge advantages of the modern platform. Scalability is possible. So it took about 3 years for us to retool the BI tools, and we'll probably be done in about a month to get rid of all the legacy platforms and move to the modern in-memory and cloud analytics platforms.
Why do you think it takes so long? Like, why does it take 3 years to do those transformations?
So in our case, we had a lot of operational reports, like 2,000 reports, which were running on a Hyperion Brio platform. And then we had OBIE tools running our sales orders reporting. And then we had OBIA, Oracle Business Intelligence, which was running financial reports and others. So the challenge is that it takes this long because you have to get complete buy-in from everybody. You have to train all the various functions in a large company, and you have to build the data pipeline correctly. So you have one opportunity to get it right when you're retooling. If you again try to kind of make the same data model or same reports that came in the old way into the new platform, you're just moving the problem from one to the other. So you have to think of kind of where we want to go in the future and create the data models in that fashion. So I would say not only is the complexity of the reports, the complexity of the data models, it's also bringing everybody together into one common platform in organizational, as well as training, as well as for them to self-service. It takes time. It's not, so change management is a big thing in BI. And also getting it accurate is also very difficult. You can get 80-90% accurate, but to get 100% accurate requires a lot of testing and a lot of certification. So while you're doing this 3 years, the business is not standstill. So we made many acquisitions, we made many projects. There's a lot of initiatives. So all of these actually increases time because you are nothing is in standstill anymore, right? Constantly things are changing. So you need to, this whole transformation, while it's happening, it may go in up and down because you have to now focus on an acquisition integration, or you have to focus on other priorities.
Right.
So it takes a lot of time and a vision and also leadership to make it happen.
Right. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. There's businesses are constantly evolving and requirements change, etc. So that your projects have to evolve with that. What are some of the 6 strategies that you've used successfully to take the requirements of thousands of users and prioritize what you should be doing for the business? Being a small team, you obviously don't have unlimited resources, right? So how do you make sure that you're working out if you should help out finance versus marketing?
Right. So there's some common themes that are coming along. So the way I look at it is 3 kinds of reporting. One is real-time reporting. So the way I define real-time reporting is you want to know what's happening in the source system right now. So this is like you can take like supply chain or order fulfillment or manufacturing. There are certain use cases where you want to know what's in the system right now, so I know what to ship, or things like that, very real-time requirements. Or then there is operational reporting. So operational reporting is how we define it as what happened 4 hours back, or what happened 2 hours back, or what happened in the last day. So what happened to my campaigns in the last week, or how did my orders do in the last week, or last today, or yesterday, or which product should I ship? Was there any issue in the systems? Was there some delays? So those kind of things are operational reporting. But in operation reporting, what happens nowadays is the data comes from multiple sources. So in real-time reporting, data is coming from only one single source. Operation reporting, you have to still merge data from multiple sources, but you're looking at what the current data is, maybe a week old, a month old, or a day old, or a few hours old. So that's kind of the timeline for the operation reporting. And then there is the analytical reporting. So the analytical reporting is where you are now looking at year-on-year performance, period over period, and you are looking at the people who are using the analytical reporting are the executives, management, and the data latency can be maybe once a day, or it could be once a week, once a month also, it may be sufficient. So when you look at it, there are 3 kind of reporting: real-time, operational, and analytical reporting, or analytics. And the user base for these 2 are, the real-time reporting is line level folks, operational reporting are operational managers, and the analytical reporting are the managers and executives in your company. So the demand for each of them is different. So where you need the modern BI tools, not visualization tools like a Power BI or a Tableau, is in the analytical reporting, whereas the usage, the other 2, operational and real time, they're happy with mostly listing reports, but they want it to be consistent, accurate. So if you can find a way to segment your requirements and use cases, then you can know where you need to put your team's attention and focus on. So you build your real-time and operational reporting once correctly, folks are happy. Whereas the analytical reporting is where you is constantly changing, the requirements are changing, and demand from executives are different, and it's more of data exploration. Where is my new business going to come from? Mm-hmm. So what we do in my team is we enable the real-time and operation reporting. We are mostly done there, and then our focus is on enabling the more of the analytical reporting right now. Right. In all the 3 use cases, we stop at the point of giving the data sets, and then let the various user base build their own reports. And we train the super users, we train the power users, and they train each other. So that's the only way to scale for a large company.
Great. Yeah, no, I like that approach. I mean, that is an approach, probably the most successful way that we've seen some of the more modern tools being rolled out, is that you do have a centralized coordination, but then you try and throw the analytics to the more business users who understand what they need, understand the data a little bit better, and you sort of unleash the capabilities of these tools on them. And so I'd be interested, like, what sort of tools are you using for that? Is it Power BI, Tableau, others?
Right. So for real-time reporting, what we do is I have a tool called Denodo, which is a data virtualization tool. So we build the data models right on top of the operational system, like Oracle or Siebel or Salesforce.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we let the users use whatever visualization they want. Like we have Spotfire, we have Tableau, we have Power BI, we have Excel on top of Denodo for real-time reporting.
Mm-hmm.
So in this way, the advantage of that is like each of these tools are not building their own data model, whereas we build the central data model and they can just report out of that. And then if there is a fourth tool, fifth tool coming into the system, each one is not doing same joins over and over again.
Right.
For operational reporting, we use a tool called Encoda, which is an in-memory analytics tool. They are a startup based out of San Mateo. So we use it heavily for our operational reporting, and
Mm-hmm.
we also use Snowflake for cloud system data from Salesforce and data from Oracle CPQ and so on. And then for analytical reporting, we are using Power BI, and we're using MicroStrategy. And then as visualizations tools are coming and going, but the core data model and actual data pipeline is what is we are seeing can be long lasting.
Right. Interesting. Yeah, I like that framework. That mental framework is that if you can build the pipeline and the foundation of the pipeline effectively, that can actually have longevity. While there'll be new applications, new technologies come on stream, but if you have that pipeline feeding those new technologies really set up well, that's where you can scale. You can scale your investment in your data assets.
Correct. And I think that the vision for a single data lake is very important. I would say single common data warehouse. In our case, it's made of two different tools in the backend. One is Encoda, the other is Snowflake. And so we have a lot of our historical data stored in Snowflake, but our primary data warehouse is Encoda, out of which we are doing both our operational and analytical reporting. And we have long history of data sitting in Snowflake, so we use that as a staging area to load into Encoda, as well as data coming from around 20 different operational sources, like as I mentioned, Oracle, Siebel, Salesforce, Eloqua, a bunch of different applications.
That is a constant theme that I've heard from many over the last number of months, is that having some sort of centralized data lake, is what the sort of term is, can really bring a lot of efficiencies to what you're doing. Not only from just a technology point of view, but like a governance point of view as well. And just I think sets you up much more effectively than if you're trying to work across many different databases, many different data sources. And this is also relevant for businesses of all sizes. It doesn't even need to be for larger organizations. It could be for small to medium-sized organizations, because everyone's using SaaS-based applications. I mean, data's just everywhere, right? And so if you can somehow centralize it with a easy to use tool, you're really setting yourself up in a much better way to plug into things like Power BI and Tableau, etc. Because then that can be your, the visualization layer on top of this more central repository of all your information.
Right. So the single data lake, the way you should envision it is you have to move on from ETL to ELT. So what you need to do is to start ingesting data from your cloud SaaS application, whether it's on-premise or whether it could be business-owned applications. So you should start ingesting the data into your staging area, and then whatever transformations that you require by joining across these, you can do that in your data lake. This is kind of the underlying principle of how DBT and Snowflake work, and also how Infota works. So it's important that you have that vision of ingesting data as and when as from various sources, and you can directly report it on the ingested data, or you can transform it if needed by joining across many of these data that came across by doing some transformation, setting up aggregated tables so that your visualization tools like Power BI, Tableau, whether it's Domo, or I mean, there's so many of them. But the key part is how do you set up your data pipeline, and that vision has to be very clear so that you can add more and more sources that are going to come in. So it could come from acquisition. Acquisition can throw a whole bunch of sources at you at one shot. So or it could be a transformation in the IT tool structure. So yeah, so new sources are going to come all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, how I'm sort of visualizing it in my mind is that you have all these data assets spread across all of your different technologies and business functions. And, if you can bring them all into one, the value of that asset will become much greater than the disparate sources of that data and those data assets. You'll be able to remove duplication. You'll be able to clean data more effectively. You'll be able to throw various different AI and machine learning models over the data when you consolidate it effectively. So there's so many benefits in getting this sort of like one central depository of information for a whole raft of reasons. So yeah, it makes total sense.
Right. And the thing is, if we don't do it, the business is going to find a way to do it. But the overall cost to the company is going to be many-fold compared to you have one common vision across the company, which is not easy to achieve, but that's the way to do it. Because if you as IT is not doing it, the businesses, they will find a way to do it. But then each one is going to do it on their own fashion, own way, and you're going to end up with a whole bunch of different numbers, a huge amount of cost, because everybody is now doing ETL, right, or ELT on their own. Yeah, which is a waste. Yeah, it's a waste. Yeah.
Now, I'd love to dive into part of your job description, the intelligent automation manager part of it. What does that entail? That's quite a unique job description. So I do know there's a lot of like new technologies like UiPath and RPA technologies coming out. So I presume that's part of it, but I'd love to dive into that a little bit more.
Yeah, I think it's a very good question. And I think many people are familiar with RPA by now. So which is like more of a UI automation. So if, for example, you have some people keying in through 20 different ERP screens for various processes, and so how you can automate what a human does on a PC. So we have use cases like we have POs coming from suppliers and customers. The POs can be 70 pages. Sometimes it will be small, sometimes huge. So what people are doing is they key in this PO into the ERP system. So whereas a tool like UiPath, you can use machine learning and read these POs. So each and every new kind of PO that comes in or an invoice, these machine learning models, they learn, and then they start reading more and more better, and they start ingesting into your ERP. And then we have use cases of new employee onboarding. So if an employee is onboarded, so how do you set them up with a laptop? How do you set them up in the systems, VPN? That's a huge workflow. So can you automate that? So even if you can't automate 100%, if you can automate 80% and let the humans do the remaining 20%, you free up a lot of time. And I see that the question is, where do you put this team in your company? If you see, the vision is very similar to BI, where you have a central small team enabling the tools and enabling the vendor relationship and enabling in the infrastructure. But then you let the various businesses come up with their own automation ideas. You come and own automation development, and whatever makes sense as ROI, you let them build it, and then you move it into the central area to run and operationalize. So in the intelligent, I see a lot of parallel between BI and intelligent automation, and the machine learning as well as the AI capabilities are very similar to what you do in analytics. So I think it's a good place to put this team into the, if you look into your analytics team. I think it's a natural extension for that team. So that's why I took over that role, and I was able to successfully use my learnings from how to roll out a BI infrastructure out in the automation space as well.
Yeah, to me that makes sense, because what you're seeing with a lot of these big technology providers is they're democratizing not only BI but also the application build, like apps, building apps, internal apps, and also the automation side of it. So basically, if you can build the same implementation strategy around all of those, the technologies are being built to work around that. And is that the same thing that you've recognized?
That's right. Now the thing is, what we in BI team learned is we learned to work with finance, we learned to work with supply chain, we learned to work with sales, we learned to work with marketing and automation. Also, all these groups need automation, so I think you need to find the right. So it's not just CRM automation, not just finance automation, right? So BI teams are very well knowledgeable on how to work with each of those groups. So that's where the experience comes in to enable them the tools to build it. The second thing in automation is you should not centralize it. You should federate it out so that the teams are building their own automations. And this is very little to separate between the UI automation, and now the new trend is also low code, no code applications. So these two kind of go together. And the third part is the analytics. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting. I don't have a full vision of how it's going to evolve in terms of the automation side, but I think it's very early stages. So it's going to be very interesting to see how automation, UI automation like UiPath, and the low code, no code thing is going to all play together in the landscape. So it's going to be interesting to see over the next few years. And how,
to me, it definitely seems like the trend, the biggest wave is the no code, low code, the democratization of all of these technologies, like really making them trying to make them as easy to use as, say, Excelers, for example. And I just don't see that stopping. I just see that is where every large technology organization is heading. They're just trying to empower everyone to even create AI models and machine learning models eventually. Like, it's just going to continue to happen, I feel.
Yeah, it comes with the risk, because unless you govern it properly, because tools like UiPath, they are now pushing for a bot for everyone. The question is, do you want somebody to write a bot on your ERP without testing it, without proper governance, without the proper login, etc.? So you may end up with if they run something wrong, you may end up with 1,000 POs or 1,000,000 POs in under a minute, which you are not ready for. It's all probably wrong data. It's going to take forever to clean up. So the question is, to what level are you going to go for? So that's still a challenge. I think it's very similar again to BI, where yes, these tools are becoming easier and easier, and it may not be a good thing unless you have a governance structure in place and you have understanding in the company that, hey, you know what, we have to work together and not each one doing their own thing. That's going to be in the organizational structure is going to be extremely key, not only for BI, but also for all the low code, no code, and for the automations.
Yeah, couldn't agree. I mean, I just think of it as the centralized coordination. So you're always going to need some sort of central governance strategy, some centralized rollout strategy. There's just no getting away with it. It can't be the Wild West where everyone just goes off and does their own thing. But there's definitely strategies that can be implemented quickly and effectively. It's not like it needs to be some onerous internal regulatory team that just checks off everything. Like it can be an empowerment strategy, and that's probably the best way to go about it.
Right. So we have a model called a federated COE model, where each function has their own development COE. But then there is an IT central COE, which is ultimately responsible for maintaining the platform and making sure that whatever is being built is being tested. So we just do a quick check of, hey, is this bot doing what it's supposed to do or what it was supposed to announce to do? And then we do a quick round of testing, and then we move to production. And then we support it, and ultimately they scale it out so that a lot of developers come in, but there is a central team maintaining the production environment as well as the governance of the platform. So it's a federated COE model is working pretty well, and it's able to scale rather than each one having their own automation strategy.
Nice. And so what do you feel is the best strategy internally to empower your front of office users, your business users? So what sort of education strategies are you pursuing? Is there any coordinated like meetings that you have specific for analytics? Like what are some of the things that you're doing to bring everyone together on the same page around these initiatives?
Yeah, so we're rolling out a similar federated COE model for analytics. We're almost done with the modernization platform. So now it is time to harvest what we have achieved over the last 4 years. And so it's a lot of education that needs to happen. So I'm planning to get all the super users ready, making sure we have a core team of super users, which is the BI-COE, and make sure that we understand what are the business problems in each of their community, whether it is product teams, whether it's sales teams, whether it's the service teams, and making sure we have a common vision. We don't have to all do the same thing, but we have to at least understand what challenges each groups are facing and which strategy or tools we can provide so that we are not caught surprised. This has happened many times where we completely are unaware of what other groups are doing, and they've gone ahead so far ahead in certain areas, but then they run into roadblocks. Like they can't scale anymore, it's too slow, things like that. So that's a waste, right? You spend so much company resources and unaware of what others are doing, and then you end up with a bottleneck, right? So it's kind of a way we have to avoid that in the future. That's kind of one of my big goals. So to be aware of what else is going on in the various functions, so that we are not caught unaware with some development that is we're not aware of. And it's not easy, but it's kind of we're getting there in terms of being aware of all the requirements that come in and how to enable the solutions for them.
Nice. What I think would be interesting is what are some innovative projects that you're working on, or just high level, like what are some big wins that you've had or are working towards that can inspire those tuning in to pursue similar sort of things?
Yeah, so there are several big initiatives in the company. One of them last year was a revenue recognition project where Keysight is going from traditional hardware selling to more solution selling and more of recurring revenue. And it's also going towards software. So recognizing software revenue is different from what it was. So for that, we implemented a solution called RevPro, which is a cloud revenue management system. So a key part of ERP was recognizing revenue. and now that is taken out of ERP and moving to the cloud on a Rev Pro. But the challenge for BI is that now you have data coming from two big sources, and we are expected to stitch the data together and then provide revenue reporting for the company. Revenue reporting, as you know, is hugely important for every function, not only finance but sales, everybody. Um, so the question, and including tax, including your external Wall Street reporting. So how do you provide a single framework for all these functions when now data has gone from one application to two different applications? So this is where your common data lake strategy has to work. So can you do a deep join between these two? Can you union them? Can you join them in multiple different ways? Can you perform? Can it now perform at a very good level, not only for operational folks, but even for the executive level and the management level? So yeah, I think this was a test for our BI strategy. Actually, is it going to work? And it actually worked really well, because of primarily because of the new tools like Encoda, which is in-memory applications, and you can join easily across two different data sets. You can union them. You can do all kind of different manipulation. It's basically ELT, extract from your two different sources, you transform them, and you provide a common data set. You can provide one or more common data sets for your operational team or for your management teams. So, and you can build on top of it for more aggregations for revenue over year over year, whether it's going to be how did my product do this month versus last month, this month, last quarter, this year, last year. And then you can do trending over multiple years. So it's for data exploration. So I would say that use the opportunity of these large projects where you can get a lot of funding to enable your BA strategy as well. And I would say that you have to, as you have a BA strategy, you have to build on top of it and not really try to build a siloed BI just because there is a new initiative in your company.
One of the things that comes to mind when you were going through that example is that, and I think this is becoming increasingly important as a sort of any BI professional, is that it's a lot of it is actually just recognizing how to bring different pieces of the puzzle together, identifying what pieces of technology you need up and down the data pipeline stack, and then sort of creatively bringing them all together to actually get the output that you need. And a lot of that is just staying very very well versed around some of the technologies that are coming out, how you can integrate them. A lot of nearly out of the box, nearly all technologies are trying to become much more integrated, right? It's not the old days where well, I think it still happens in some regards where Microsoft or Amazon try to trap you, or even SAP try and trap you in their Oracle, try and trap you in their systems, right? Like basically, you want to make sure that everything can interact together and everything can be plugged into other things so that you can bring best of breed for whatever you need. And I think that's a big part of BI now. Like I think that is truly a big part of your role. Anyone in this space.
Absolutely, yes, you're right. And it's and the thing is that there is so much noise in the BI system. Like Google has now bought Looker, and they have their own stack now. And then you have SAP with its own stack, Oracle with its own stack, and then Microsoft definitely has its own stack. The question is, how do you choose, right? And then once you choose, how do you stick to that platform, right? Yes, there's going to be plus and minus. But the thing is that, are you really ready to move all your reporting from one tool to just another tool because it's 10% better than certain areas? You're never going to have the perfect BA platform. And so the question is, are you really at a 90% good enough, right? So you have to kind of learn to make trade-offs as well. Otherwise, you'll just be moving the same thing from tool set A to tool set B. So that you have to be very careful. That's why my focus is on the data pipeline and make sure that you can accommodate any BI tool that comes into the system, so that the changes are happening at the front end level and not on your data pipeline level.
Mm. Yeah, this is the data pipeline to me is a great concept that that has come up many times, many conversations, and I think that a lot of analysts these days, we spend a lot of time in the visualization tools, right? The analysis tools, and I think if you really want to showcase your value more, is you need to become much more well-versed in the data pipeline, the entire data pipeline, because there's certain things that are more optimized, are better to do at certain areas of the pipeline. Not everything needs to be done at this final, reporting stage or this final visualization stage. And that's one of the big learnings for me, certainly over many months now, from speaking to many experts, data leaders like yourself, is that is becoming more and more important. So, I think just having you don't have to know, you don't have to be a DBA, but you can just have an understanding of like how to build a data lake or how to bring things together in a data lake. What sort of data cleaning techniques you need to use to be able to make sure the data is optimized. And then, once you set that foundation up well, then, you're going to be able to really do that added value stuff, get that great analytics out there to decision makers and to where it's going to be utilized the best.
Yeah, just a quick advice on this one, from at least from a learning point is, yes, you have an analyst like a Power BI, Tableau, and each of them have their own small data pipeline. For example, Tableau has Tableau data prep, and Power BI has its own piece, and then Looker has its own piece. The question is, what works for 1 million rows does not work for a billion rows, or even like a 10 million. What works for 10 million rows doesn't work for 100 million rows. And what works for 100 million rows doesn't work for now 3 billion rows. The question is, they build these, a lot of analysts build because they start with very small data sets, and all the dashboards are performing, their data pipeline is working really well, but then now they try to scale, and then they hit bottlenecks because it's slow, and it's just everything just comes to a standstill. The question is, you have to, if you're just uploading your own spreadsheets, that's one thing. But if you're now dealing with corporate big data sets, it's better to leave that to the experts and let them provide the data pipeline and certified data sets, so that you can now work on that last mile of BI and provide value to your users. So getting this balance is not easy, and this is where I think the next set of BI successes needs to happen. How do these teams work together? Because there are many tools claiming many things. The question is which one to use for what is going to be extremely important, so that you can actually have a successful BI strategy that is working.
Well, in my view, the best data analysts, the best analytical thinkers and workers within organizations are going to have the recognition of what they need to scale. It's not just about building a dashboard anymore. It's about how can you scale these. And you don't, as I said earlier, you don't have to know how to do exactly all of it, but you need to have a recognition of what you need and then who to go and approach to actually make it happen. And I also love the last mile analogy as well, because that's just so true in analytics, isn't it? It's like you can the success of your entire logistical enterprise around analytics can be won or lost in that last mile.
Exactly. Yeah.
And if you can nail the scalability and effectiveness of that last mile across your organization, you're well on your way to having a superior implementation of all your BI initiatives.
I agree. Yeah, perfectly said.
So we're getting to the end here, Bharath. One of my questions I like to ask, one of my last questions I like to ask is, what are you most excited about? Like you're obviously in a really great position to be able to see a lot of the new things that are coming out and seeing how they can be successfully implemented within a large organization. So what is exciting you most about any area of analytics? Could be technology, value generation, buy-in from management, etc. Or in and amongst that, what are the things that you get most excited about?
Right. So I think what I get excited about is to get buy-in from various groups. So you have a vision, and are they adopting your vision, and are they getting success out of the vision, and of your BI strategy or BI landscape, and is one group helping other groups now come onto that platform. So that's I think a true scalability within the company. Now the second thing is, how else can you leverage your single data lake, right? So that I think is next step. Is, for example, how can you have other use cases? Can it now have some machine learning on top of that to help increase your business in a different ways? That's where we are exploring. I think it's possible now that you have data in one place. It took a long time to get there, but then once you get there, how do you now leverage that for various different use cases? For example, in our case, we are using that to mine potential for new opportunities and new renewals of high, for example, very high margin renewals for our platforms. That how do you identify which customer is going to renew and which customer is not going to renew certain products? You can identify churn. You can identify a whole bunch of things if you have a single data lake. So how do you come up with new business models based on data is going to be a key thing that for the future. And how do you make sure you don't know the answers because the business is so big, but how do you enable the businesses to start looking at the data in a different perspective rather than just what reporting purposes?
Yeah, I really like that and couldn't agree more. I think that the opportunities to get everything centralized up in the cloud will open up opportunities that you didn't even know existed. That is my feeling, and that's only going to continue with all of these technologies that you'll be able to layer on top of that.
And it'll only work with people alignment that across the company. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So I would say that if you're starting a new BI platform, new BI initiatives, get your organization structure correct before you get into anything else. So it's very critical.
Great. Okay, Bharath, why don't we round off there? I think it was a brilliant discussion. Really appreciate all your insights and being able to leverage off your experience is something that you really enjoyed, and I'm sure all our listeners would have got a lot out of it as well. So really appreciate your time today, and thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Sam.
Great. Okay. Well, thanks everyone. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite listening app, and many more great discussions just like this one coming out in the near future. Okay. Take care, everyone.